Good evening, members and colleagues. Welcome to Policy and Resources Committee. I'm Simon Copley. For those people who don't know me, I'm Head of Corporate Governance and Monitoring Officer, and I'm taking the first item at this meeting of Policy and Resources, which is appointment of a chair. So I'd like to ask members of the committee, do you have any nominations for appointment to the chair of Policy and Resources? Councillor Arnold, you're on mute.
I would like to propose Councillor Frank.
Is that seconded?
I'd like to second that.
Is that Councillor Dockwra? Are there any other nominations for the chair of Policy and Resources Committee?
Yes, Simon. Can I? Sorry, someone speak. Can I propose Councillor John Clark, please?
And is that seconded?
Yeah, I will second that, Simon.
Can I just check? Thank you. Can I check with both nominees that you're willing to be nominated?
No, Simon, I'm sorry. I don't wish to take this post. I would quite happily be deputy chair, and support Councillor Clark if Councillor Clark is the chair. I've thought about it, and I have a dual role on this council, and I have my national park work as well as the work I do for council. And along with the other responsibilities I have, I really feel as though Councillor Clark would have be a better chair than me, because he has more time to do it and he can devote himself to that role, whereas I would be. But I'm quite happy to support him as deputy chair if that's awarded to me. Thank you.
So Councillor Frank has said she doesn't wish her nomination to go forward. So at the moment we have one nomination, which is Councillor Clark. Can I check that Councillor Clark's willing to be nominated, please?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Simon, I'm willing.
Sorry, I thought I was seconding John Clark.
So at the moment we have one nomination, which is Councillor Clark. That's proposed by Councillor Joy Andrews, seconded by Councillor Ryedale. Can I check, are there any further nominations? Do you want to make a speech in support of your nomination, Councillor Andrews?
Yes, I'll just keep it very brief. John Clark has represented his constituents on Ryedale District Council for many years. He did a fantastic job of chairing the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which he was backed almost unanimously, I think, with much praise by all the councillors, as he did a fantastic job. So he's used to being in a chairman's role, and I think he would be fantastic for this role. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Ryedale, do you want to speak as seconder of the nomination?
Thank you very much. Yes, just briefly to say that, yeah, he's obviously a very experienced councillor, very eloquent in his speech making, and he took over quite well at the last PNR when it was dumped on him with, I assume, as a surprise, and carried out in that situation very well. So I think it'd be very good if he continued on from the last meeting where he came in a rush. So yeah, I think he's the right man for the job. Thank you.
Now move into debate. Councillor Duncan is indicating to speak.
Thank you, Simon. I just wanted to make some short comments. The first one is I would have supported Councillor Frank's nomination as Chairman of Policy and Resources. Obviously, she doesn't wish to stand, and I accept that. But I would like to make one key comment, and the key issue for this council over the next year is going to be the issue of local government reorganisation. I think we all accept that that's the key issue, which we need to make sure that we're on top of and that we're fully briefed on as members, and that we play a full and proactive role, not just within the council, but across North Yorkshire, given the joint effort that's underway to get the very best outcome possible. And on that issue, that key issue of reorganisation, Councillor Clark, if he takes on this role this evening, is the de facto leader of this council. He will be acting as the leader of the council. He'll be speaking, in effect, as leader of the council at external meetings. And he is in a very different place personally, and the group that he represents, the group of five, the Liberal group, to every other group on this council. The Liberal group were the only group that wholly and entirely opposed the submission of the East and West proposal to government. Not necessarily supporting it, but actually submitting it to government. They opposed that. They didn't wish for it to go forward. And given that that is our bid, the bid that the officers have worked upon, I am struggling in many ways to understand how Councillor Clark, on the key issue, the most important issue facing this council, which every other group on the council seems to be behind, or at least wanted it to be submitted to government as an option to be considered. Councillor Clark was opposed to that. His group were opposed to that. I understand that is still the position, and I am concerned about Councillor Clark's ability, putting aside all of his other positive attributes, on that one issue, to be able to speak on behalf of the council in this key and most important year. That document was submitted by 21 councillors, 7 votes against. Some of those 7 were opposing principle to reorganisation, not to the document itself. I accept that. But I do think on that key issue, Councillor Clark is in a different place to members. He's also in a very different place to the staff, who have indicated in writing to members through the Unison Union that they are very strongly in favour of the East and the West. So I do struggle with Councillor Clark's ability to represent this council internally and externally on this very key issue. So I'm concerned about that. However, I'm not going to vote against his nomination. If that is the will, he wants to do it, and there's no other alternative, and Councillor Frank was not willing to do it, then I feel I have no option but to abstain on his nomination. But I do think on that issue, Councillor Clark is in a very different place, and I think we are going to potentially regret him being in that post.
Councillor Burrs indicating to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So obviously we're in this position because the chair of PNR resigned his post. So it's a position that we've been thrown into. And Councillor Clark has said that he would step up to the mark and he would represent us. I think that this council is all about collaboration and trying to work together as one and looking at the views of everybody. Whilst I hear what Councillor Duncan has said, but you have no idea how Councillor Clark is going to represent this council if he becomes the chair of PNR. You are assuming what might happen, but through collaboration, I think you've got to really sort of look at those views quite in depth about it's going to be completely different. Now, some members of this council are also members of North York County Council and voted for that bid to go through as well as Ryedale. So we're keeping their options open. And I think that a lot of councillors on Ryedale were actually saying we'd like to keep our options open. So I don't think it's a given that everybody is absolutely knowing what to do, because I personally would like to hear what York have got to say about this. I'd like to hear, you know, what other people are saying, because I was at Norton Town Council recently and they said that they didn't know which way to go. And Councillor King, you know, he was really concerned about all this. So I think what we've got to do is remember that we're just electing a chair tonight, because obviously Councillor Duncan resigned. And we have got no idea of why or what he doesn't want to support him, but he said that he's assuming things. Let's just give somebody else the job, because there's no one else who wants to do it. And I think that we'll move forward in a very, very positive way.
Councillor Frank to speak next.
I did say by not accepting the post of chair of this committee that I would be quite happy to be deputy chair. And I think if I was working with Councillor Clark, we could work together and we could work well and get to where we want to be with our with this bid. I know John was opposed to it, and but I think we can talk about it and we can get to a position where he can lead it forward and take it forward. And I would like to help him to do that. And I think Lindsay's right that what we need is more collaboration in this council. And Councillor Duncan said that Councillor Clark just has 5 members. Well, since last year, there's been a bit of a coalition on opposing, in case you haven't noticed, that it's been 15-15 with a lot of votes, and a lot of votes, a really lot of votes, have been carried by a chairman's casting vote. So I think Councillor Clark has got other people working with him, not just his group, that's what I'm saying, and that other people will have input into his chairmanship. And if you talk to Councillor Clark, he does listen. That's one thing, that he does listen to what you say. So I think really that he will make a good chairman. I think he will make a good chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Dockwra.
Yeah, I'm just surprised there at what Councillor Frank has said, that actually it's now out in the open. There is a coalition. They have formed a group together to basically vote against the Conservatives. And it surprises me that some people who were voted on either Conservative ticket have moved over the sides are actually now, this is more about taking power away from the Conservatives than your actual beliefs. And I think that was a really interesting comment, that this is actually about doing Keane down, or Councillor Duncan down, and the Conservatives, than it is about your own beliefs.
Can I just remind members that on a proposal, the council procedure rules allow for 1 speech per person. So a number of people had indicated to come back again, unless it's a point of personal explanation because you've been named. Councillor Frank, did you want to come back under that?
Explanation, Simon, yes. I don't think it's any secret that we've all been talking. It can't be any secret from last October's council meeting. It's not personal. No way is it personal to Keane Duncan, and no way is it personal to his leadership. It's the way we want this council to be encompassed by all groups. And I have to say that the other groups on this council have been left out and left in the cold and not told what's happening for long enough. And that's why we got our heads together and said, let's see if we can't get together and have a combined council instead of one group. Well, I have to say, dictating to the rest of the council, because that's what happened for a long time. We weren't asked, we weren't consulted, we were told what was happening, we were told what had been decided. And that's why we got together. But now, what I have to say, it's nothing about grabbing power for one group or another group or against a group. It's about everyone working together. Thank you.
There's no other members indicating who've not already spoken. So what I'm, or Councillor Delaney's
I just like
indicated
I'd just like to make a very brief comment, if possible, Simon. I've been mentioned several times.
What I'd propose to do then is to go to Councillor Delaney, who's not spoken yet, then to Councillor Clark as the nominated member, and then back to Councillor Joy Andrews as the proposer of the motion. Councillor Ryby, you've already spoken in the debate. So unless it's a point of personal explanation, I wasn't going to come back to you before we conclude the debate. If I go to Councillor Delaney next, please.
Thank you, Simon. Firstly, I think it's important that we have somebody who leads, whether that be leader of PNR or whether that be leader of council. I won't be supporting Councillor Clark this evening. I won't be voting against him, but I won't be voting for him. There's no doubt that Councillor Clark is extremely knowledgeable. He's been in the council a long time, so I don't think anybody can dispute that. The reason I won't be supporting him is, and John, Councillor Clark, I'm sure you'll have a personal reply, but I've found him quite disruptive and divisive on a lot of the key issues that this council has faced over the months I've been on it. And we do need a unifying force. Now, that's not to say that Councillor Duncan was it. For some people it was, for some people it wasn't. But I don't believe that Councillor Clark is that voice. I hope he can bring the council together at what is a very difficult time and a very challenging time. But as Councillor Duncan says, the issue of reorganisation, local reorganisation, is the biggest challenge that we will face as a council. And Councillor Clark is on a different page to a lot of the other members. So if he is elected, I wish him well, but I won't be supporting him. But I do hope that for many meetings, for many months, he has criticised Councillor Duncan for his lack of inclusion of other members. And there's been talk, I think Councillor Frank has mentioned tonight, of a dictatorship. Now, I'd like to see, if Councillor Clark is elected, him go down a different path to what he's accused the leader of in the past. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. If we go to Councillor Clark next, please.
Thank you, Simon. I think we're in real pots and kettles land about groups working together on the council. I don't think the people who've said that have got to look very far to see pretty close alignment between some groups. The next thing is the position on the local government reorganisation. I don't recall us ever having taken a vote on the East-West bid. Not the bid, the final result, where it came out. We voted against it, not because we're opposed to East-West, but because we wanted to take part in what was in it. And after the final bid has gone in, we haven't voted whether or not the council wants to support it or not. I'm impressed that Councillor Duncan knows my views on it, because I don't know my views on it. But never mind. But I think the item 10 on the agenda might give him a clue as to where I'm coming from on it. And that is asking for the district councils who submitted the East-West bid to make a presentation on it. And that needs to be somebody from outside of Ryedale. And the same as the North Yorkshire bid will come from people outside of Ryedale. And the same as the view of City of York and what they think about it all will come from outside of Ryedale. When we've heard all that, we can then take it to full council and decide on our way forward. But as it stands at the moment, we have not had any democracy in it whatsoever. And if you don't have democracy, then you will get opposition and disruption from me, Councillor Delaney. More than happy to do it. Because if we're being told, and we are the elected representatives of the people, being told is not the way forward. So on that basis, I will ask anybody to reflect on, and look at the votes and the discussions done on scrutiny. Massive numbers of votes were up in the 8 2s, 7 1s, etc. range, not the 5 5s and the 15 15s that we've got used to in recent months. And I think that is the problem. And that is what tipped me into saying, OK, I will have a go. But again, finally, to you, Councillor Duncan, I am there for discussion. At any point, I will listen if elected, and I may not agree with you, but I will discuss, I will take your points on board, and I will weigh them, not just dismiss them and tell myself, as I've been told, you've had your 3 minutes, now be quiet. And that is not the way I will be trying to, if I get elected, trying to run P&R as the chair. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you. I now propose we move to Councillor Joy Andrews as proposer of the nomination to sum up, and after that we'll move to the vote. Councillor Ryedale has already spoken, so I wasn't